teachers in particular talked about the way that he took advantage of the teachable moment to keep introducing the idea of sustainability, and the way that he kept talking about sustainability when it came up. And so they talked about sustainability in terms of, like what would happen if there were no more butterflies, or if there were no more caterpillars, what would happen then? Or the plant, if the plant didn't have any flowers or any seeds, what would happen then? And so that's how they approached it. They took it in there. And so when I came along at the end of the unit of work, and I did interviews with the children, and what I asked them to do was sequence the life cycle of a plant. I had some pictures, and they had to put the pictures in sequence. And then I'd ask them questions like, what would happen if there were no more seeds, or, if the plant didn't have any flowers, or they knew about bees pollinating the flowers. The children, they did understand that if the life cycle was interrupted in any way, that meant that there would be no more, but they couldn't really talk about it in terms of identify that as being an aspect of sustainability. So they could talk about the life cycle of the monarch butterfly, and they could say that if the monarch butterfly didn't lay any more eggs, that meant there would be no more butterflies, because the eggs hatched into caterpillars, and then the caterpillars became butterflies. But they couldn't really talk about that being sustainability. But if I asked them, can you show me what, I asked them what sustainability meant, and about half of them could talk about sustainability meaning something would go round and round. And then I said, well, can you tell me what does go round and round? They could point to the life cycle of the butterfly or the life cycle of the plant. So you could talk about emerging understandings of sustainability there. One child surprised me because I said, do you know of anything else that goes round and round? And she said, she talked about the water cycle, and she could talk about the rain.
The implications for teachers are that from now on we're having to move away from a knowledge-based focus onto thinking skills focus, and that is taking a lot of us out of our comfort zones, especially those of us who've been teaching for a long time. So we're having to look at things like how do we teach children to think analytically? Mm-hmm. How can we help them critically evaluate stuff? Biodiversity in school. The children in the lower class and the composite primary 1, 2, 3 watched a glow meet activity relating to bees called Little Giants, and as one of the follow-up activities to that, we tried out an activity where the children had to identify their fellow bees from their hive through their sense of smell. The children were all given a cotton wool ball from a basket full of scented cotton wool balls. They had been scented with food flavourings, so some were lemon, some were almond, some were tea tree and so on, and the children had to go around and sniff each other's cotton wool ball to try and find out who their hive mates were. It was a really successful activity. The children just loved doing it, and gained, I would say, a much better understanding of how bees identify each other than if I had simply told them about it.
I'm in conversation with Matt and Jordan, who are 2 IT students about to go on their 10-week secondary school placement in the biology department. In the biodiversity curriculum for excellence outcomes, can you see a particular theme running through from primary to secondary pupils?
I think the outcomes clearly show for biodiversity a progression from having living things to how each living thing interacts with everything around it. Moving further again, you could continue the thread of chemical signalling and move that into mating behaviours between different animals as well. So I think just from that one example that the primary school teacher has used, we could use that to cover multiple different topics in secondary education.
For the teachers, I interviewed them afterwards, and they all talked about how difficult they saw it initially to be able to, incorporate sustainability. But I said to them, well, what do you think now? And they said, well, actually, it's not as hard as we thought it was. And they brought up that idea that you have to take advantage of the teachable moment. If it comes up, you can put it in and talk about sustainability there. And they talked about the way that they saw so many more opportunities now in their teaching to incorporate sustainability, particularly in a science program. But one of those teachers also talked about the way that at the beginning of the unit, they were out in the garden one day and there was a worm on the ground, and they were really horrified because the kids all jumped on the worm. They couldn't see the value of the worm. But now, when he takes them out and they see the worms, they actually can see the value of that animal in the ecosystem in the garden. And he was really pleased that they could actually see the value of the animals rather than just seeing it as something that you didn't want. So it was quite interesting.